listeners, to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life with your host, Sana. Today, we have the distinct honor of welcoming America's number one success therapist, Dr. Stacia Alexander, to the show. Now, listeners, Dr. Alexander is a trailblazer in the world of mental health and personal development, with over 2 decades of experience as a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, and CEO of Positive Influences. Her expertise spans work life balance, resilience, and redefining success, which she shares on keynote stages, media appearances, and in her role as the mental health director at Paul Quinn College. And in today's episode, the emotionality of success, why achieving more can feel like less, Dr. Alexander will delve into the often overlooked emotional toll of success and why achieving more doesn't always lead to greater fulfillment. So, everyone, get ready for actionable insights and inspiring stories that will leave you motivated to redefine success on your own terms. So, Dr. Alexander, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor having you with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, how do you define success, Dr. Stacy, and why do you believe it often feels emotionally draining for so many high achievers?
Well, the thing is, success looks differently for everyone. What I've done is separate it into four different quadrants: professional, self care, relationships, and spiritual. When I'm talking to people, I analyze which area are they concentrating on when they want to talk about how successful they've been and what that looks like for their lives. It is all relative to your experiences and the goals you have for your life.
Great, great. Also, what are some common emotional barriers people face when they are pursuing their goals and how they can overcome?
So when we really talk about success, I really work with people on, are you having a difficult time handling the success that you've achieved? Or are you facing significant barriers trying to reach that next level of success? For people who have been successful and they're struggling with maintaining it or having work life balance, some of the things that they may experience are astronomical levels of stress. They may have higher levels of anxiety, even dealing with depression or sometimes confusion and fear. When I'm working with them, whether it's in a therapeutic or a consulting perspective, we break down those emotions that they're struggling with that could create particular barriers for them elevating more, achieving more, or reaching the goals that they've established for themselves at this current time in their life. For people who are working, they're moving towards success or they're working in another area that they want to improve upon, those barriers, the same emotional barriers, can keep them from actually reaching that next level. The same one that I said about anxiety, depression, fear, sometimes confusion, self doubt. There are a multitude of emotions that people can experience, whether they've achieved success or whether they're looking for success. And what we have not talked about in our society is that emotional aspect of working towards your goals or sustaining your goals.
Hmm. And you also talk about the concept of redefining success. So, how can someone shift their mindset to seek fulfillment in their achievements?
Really looking at what works for them. The intent is to have peace and harmony where you are in your life right now. If what you're doing is robbing you of your peace and your harmony, that is a time to take a serious look at what you're doing and what you want to do. If we find that we're out of alignment, meaning our peace and our harmony is disrupted, oftentimes it's because we're doing something that someone else wants us to do, or other people are relying heavily on us to do the things that we're doing. And when we sit down and take that time to really define what success looks like for us, then we find out what we're passionate about. What do we really want to do with our lives? What would bring us that peace and that harmony that we're seeking at this point in our life? Another thing that happens is as we age, as we develop, as we mature, success may look differently. And oftentimes we're held, or even we hold ourselves to the same level of success or the same description of success that we defined at an earlier age or when we were at a different point in our lives. Meaning, we remove the ability to shift. We remove the ability to change, to be flexible, to adapt. So we take that permission from ourselves, or we don't allow ourselves to go against what other people have in mind for us.
Hmm. So, you know, some would argue, that success inherently brings happiness and fulfillment. Why do you think, this is quite intriguing. Why do you think the reality is often so different for many high achievers?
Because they ignore the emotional aspect of it. They're only looking at or primarily looking at the acquisitions, what this level of achievement will bring me. And they think that that is the definition of success. But they haven't really taken into account, what is my countenance? What is my temperament? What do I really want from my life? Remember, there's four quadrants: professional, spiritual, relationships, and self-care. And a lot of times people are defining success only on their professional quadrant. Sometimes they'll include relationships because they look at who they want to be with for a lifetime, but rarely do they take into account self care, and rarely do they take into account the spiritual quadrant. But I encourage people to look at all four quadrants and define what they want. Therefore, when they reach what they have defined as successful in their lives, they incorporate all of the quadrants and think about, what do I need across my spiritual needs? What do I need in terms of self care? What type of work life balance do I need? What type of accountability factors do I need in order to keep that harmony when I'm looking at myself and my quality of life as I achieve those goals in my professional quadrant?
So it's kind of all of the four are interrelated.
Right, exactly. And we ignore that too often. We're not taught in schools, educational centers, everywhere. No one actually talks about, well, if you go for this particular line of work, what will that do to your emotional well-being? What will that do to your ability to rest? What will that do to your ability to connect with other people that you have interest with? I'm not saying you should not go into these industries or that you should go into these industries. I think that we are not properly trained on what it would take out of us emotionally, cognitively, and behaviorally to go after those particular goals that we want.
Hmm. I agree. I agree with you, Dr. Stacia. Also, what role does mental health play in sustaining long-term success? And what warning signs people should look out when they're feeling overwhelmed?
Oh, those are two very good questions. Mental health is a part of our lives from birth. What we do not do is acknowledge that it is a part of our lives. We get we get confused by mental health and mental illness. Mental illness tells us that something is seriously wrong, which is what you're talking about, the warning signs. Mental health are those daily things that we do to tend to our emotional, behavioral, and cognitive well-being. If you get up in the morning, you take some time to really center and relax yourself and get started for the day, then you're more likely to have a peaceful day. If you get up every morning and you hit the ground running, you don't take time to reset or recenter, you don't take time for gratitude and appreciation moments, then you're more likely to have a more stressful day, more anxiety riddled throughout your day. The warning signs that we want to look for when we're talking about mental health, which will let us know that we're getting over into some challenging moments that may lead to mental illness, a lack of sleep. If you are not getting enough rest, you are compromising your mental health. Your eating habits, if you're not properly fueling your body, you're not getting those basic things that your body needs to refuel every day. You're compromising your mental health. So if your eating patterns are changed or they've worsened, that is a key for you to sit back and really look at what you're doing during the day. If you're not properly socializing, I'm not saying that you have to be around a lot of people. There are core people There are core people in your life that if you're not spending time with them, which allows you that time to recalibrate and rejuvenate, and somebody feeding into you as much as you're feeding into them, then you need to take a look at what am I doing overall?
Yeah.
If you're not getting enough physical activity that is replenishing, some people go to the gym, some people go for a run, swimming, biking, dancing, whatever those outlets are that that tell you, okay, I need to be active, that are encouraging you to be active instead of sedentary or totally focused on your professional goals, then that's a key indicator that you are out of alignment.
Mm.
With your relationships, I want to go back to that. Even if you're spending time with people, but you're not present in the moment, you're always thinking about something else besides who the people that you're with, that's a key indicator that you're out of alignment. Those are just some core things that I ask people when I start working with them. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 in each of those areas? Then I know. If you are a spiritual person and you're not taking that time to connect with something that is higher than you, connect with something that you feel that you are supposed to be spending time with, then you know that you are out of alignment and you're in trouble. You need to take a step back and reevaluate what you're doing.
Hmm. That is really, really helpful, Dr. Alexander. Also, can you share a story from your own experience or maybe practice uh, that illustrates the emotional paradox of success?
Absolutely. I've run a group practice. Well, I did. I closed the group practice in 2023, but I ran that group practice since I was about 29 years old. And of course, there were highs and lows associated with not only having a business to run, but also continuing to see clients. That's a balance that very few people talk about in private practice. One moment in particular that I remember is I had my own physical challenges. I had some major physical challenges that I had minimized because I did not know, I didn't have enough information about it. I knew it was a life changing illness, but I addressed it and thought that my life would go on as it had been going. Much to my dismay, it totally disrupted how I process information cognitively. It disrupted how I process information emotionally, and it disrupted behaviorally, like how I move, how I function. So physically, it disrupted all of these areas, and I was ill prepared for the impact it would have. It was a moment that I was in my office alone. Everyone had gone home for the day. And I realized my anxiety was at an all time high. And that's when it dawned on me. This is because of the surgery that you had. You need to go get help. And that was when I started searching out for people that could help me understand my body post surgery, post medical experience. And that was a wake up moment for me, that all the years that I had been balancing these responsibilities, things that I love to do, owning a business, working with people, were all out of sync because I had had a medical challenge and did not take the time to understand all of the areas it would impact my functioning and not just the medical area.
Wow. I mean, I really appreciate your vulnerability, Dr. Alexander, because uh, many people, they don't wish to share such, you know, vulnerable moments of anxiety or weakness, but it takes a lot of courage. And thank you. Thank you for sharing this with all of us. Uh, Also, how can leaders and organizations create environment that support emotional wellness for their teams, especially in high pressure industries?
That is a critical question when you think about it, because at the end of the day, a business has to run. But if you have an overall culture of respecting the balance that we need as human beings, it is integrated better. When you attempt to do something after the fact, it's harder for everybody within that corporation to embrace the changes. So I do encourage new business owners to do this from the beginning. But with that being said, when you have an organization that respects the importance of work-life balance, they employ enough people to do to do the level of work that is necessary to keep that business running. They pay a fair wage for experience and skill levels. They acknowledge that people need to take time off in order to be better when they return instead of restricting their time off. And they create a culture within the organization. Now, with COVID, of course, what happened, we were able to work from home. And more people got accustomed to that. Why did they get accustomed to that? Because they were able to be themselves in their home environment. They could take breaks more readily. They could reset. They could refuel as they needed to, and really be in their space and be themselves. But what happens in corporations? We're on such a tight schedule to follow certain parameters to make sure that productivity is met. But if we incorporated parameters within that cycle of business that says everyone take a walk at 12 o'clock. I've actually worked with corporations that did that. Everyone take a break at 12 o'clock, whether you go for a walk, whether you go for a cup of coffee, you sit down and take a quick nap at your desk, whatever it is. They have meditation rooms within the corporation so that people can go in and decompress, especially after a particularly heightened meeting of some type. They actually acknowledge mental health days. So we already have in place with some organizations, you can take a personal day. So acknowledging that, yes, you do need a mental health day and it can happen without penalty. Also having some type of system that should there be conflict within that organization, especially with personality conflicts, there's somebody within that network either working for the company or they contract with someone that can come in and help mediate that conflict in the relationships so that everyone can work at their best potential, right? They can be at their best behavior or operating. Let me see, reword it. They can be at their most functional capabilities and not being bothered with personality differences or conflict because things are going unsaid and we're not addressing them. So organizations can implement some standards, some policies, and some customs so that people coming into the organization understand that they acknowledge we're human beings. We are not disregarded. We're not just employees working for uh, uh, profitable outcome, but we are one of the assets within the company and they are acknowledged as such.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Also, Dr. Alexander, so in India, uh, we have had some recent debates around a 90-hour work week. Although there have been many countries who have debated, talked about a 4-day a
Mhm.
week. But the discussions around 90-hour work weeks, it has sparked intense discussions about productivity, burnout, and work-life balance. Although we hear from leaders quoting that when you are building the future of a country or something like that, uh, these numbers, they don't matter. You need to put up maximum number of hours. What are your thoughts on the emotional and mental health implications of such demanding schedules, and how can individuals and organizations address these challenges without sacrificing well-being?
Well, that is so. I'm glad you asked that because one of the things that I said about incorporating into the workplace culture is hiring enough people to meet the demand. That would mean hiring more people. That's the bottom line. The other thing is, let's say we do have to work a 90-hour work week, then we should also have the space to take off an equal amount of time to recalibrate and reset. Again, that goes to the workforce. Either way it goes, employing enough people to handle the work demand. And as we as employees, which would be different in India, of course, than the United States, like we really do have to take the culture of the place that we're talking about into consideration and not deny that that is an issue. But even as employees, understanding what that will do to us. If I work at this level of intensity, what do I need to do to decompress when I come off of that type of worksite setting? What do I need to do to decompress? So every individual has to decide that. When I work with people in a consulting arrangement relationship, and they're lamenting about the pressures that they're under, the fears that they have about losing their job, and we know that quitting is not an option. They have to keep this job for whatever reason. I do not argue with people about their choices. What I do work with them on is creating some type of system in their life based on the 4 quadrants that will help level out that intensity so that they are not feeling those negative emotions as potently as they have been.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And also, some argue that emotional struggles are simply part of the price of success. So, do you agree, or do you believe there's a way to achieve success without sacrificing emotional well being?
I agree and disagree. It depends on what industry you are in. It depends on what your goals are. That is relative as well. Um, and it depends on what your own skill level is, your own talents. Some of us have talents that will afford us an easier route to a particular goal than others will because they have a higher learning curve or they don't even have the basic talent to meet that goal, but they're willing to work to get that. So it really is about balance. I go back to that balance. Let's say I decide I want to go to medical school tomorrow. I know that at my age, I know that with my responsibilities outside of the educational system, that will create some stressors for me. So going into that, what I would do if I was my own client, what I would do is say, let's create some goals that are aligned with your educational goals to balance out the pressure and the stressors that you will feel going through this medical program. One of the things one quick tip that I tell people, pull up the whole calendar for the year. Look at every 3-day weekend. And instead of vegging out on the 3-day weekends, let's put in some things that you enjoy doing that will help you decompress and you recalibrate for when you start back to your work week.
That's a really, really good way to plan. Thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, Dr. Alexander, what advice do you have for someone who feels like they have achieved everything they set out to, but still feel unfulfilled or empty?
I would encourage them to work with someone who will help them understand the 4 quadrants of success. You're feeling very successful in the professional quadrant, but if we took a really good look at the self-care quadrant, which is broken down even further, emotionally, how are you doing with your current level of success? Behaviorally, how are you handling it physically? And then what do you think of yourself? We work through those areas, then you can see why you're feeling unfulfilled. You can see why you're not at peace and you don't feel harmonious with your life. There are a lot of people who do that. They feel guilty for not feeling perfectly perfect when they've reached a level of success that they have been working on for so long. We do not have to feel guilty about emotional responses to our life experiences. Just because we're successful does not make us immune to emotional challenges.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Great. Great, Dr. Alexander. So, if our listeners want to connect with you, how they can do that?
They can go to my website at staciaalexander.com and it's spelled STACIAALEXANDER.com. Everything that I offer is on my website.
Great. We'll have the details mentioned in the show notes. And thank you so much, Dr. Alexander, for sharing your practical insights on the emotionality of success. And also, I think your wisdom, the info you shared on redefining success and also prioritizing emotional wellness, I think it will resonate with so many of our listeners. So, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
So, listeners, I would like to add success isn't just about achieving more, it's about living a balanced and fulfilling life, as Dr. Alexander rightly explained to us. Until next time, stay mindful, stay inspired, and keep striving for a healthy mind, healthy life. Thank